So there's this story on my mind. It keeps coming back to me all day and all day yesterday. It kept coming back to me. So I'm figuring that it's time for me to share this story. I think there's something in it for us as women who are waking up to the realization that there's more for us to be. Women who are leading women who are understanding that there's this other version of ourselves for us to step into as women and leaders and change makers. So I'm going to share the story. I want you to promise not to judge me because it happened long, long ago when I was young in my younger days. And it has something to do with a boyfriend that I had, a guy that I was really madly in love with. It happened at a time when I was looking for love in all the wrong places, a bit like not the woman that I am today. So this guy, I mean, I really did love him. Like we were together for a long time, and he was just this very smart guy. He was really good looking. He's charismatic. He was, I don't know, he just had something about him. He just had this real kind of way about him that he got on so well with people. Um, he was funny, really witty, very, very smart, and it would often, like, he cared a lot about politics, actually. And he knew a lot about current affairs. He had really good general knowledge, like all around, altogether smart guy, a very cool and smart guy. But the thing about him was that his professional life didn't reflect his potential, didn't reflect who I knew him to be. His professional life, he always did these sort of really low barrier to entry jobs. He would often get made redundant. Things didn't last long. Like he'd be let go often. Like, he just seemed to be kind of floating through professionally, even though he was this great guy with all this potential. And I remember that one, like he didn't have a lot of money. That was one thing. He just didn't have a lot of money, and he didn't like that. He didn't like that he didn't have a lot of money. Like he liked nice things, and he wanted to go places. He wanted to do things. He just couldn't seem to make the break into a professional life that paid him well and would allow him to live the kind of life that he really wanted to express. So, where am I going with this? Oh yeah, so the embarrassing bit now. Like, so I watched him struggle. I watched him go through a season of real struggle with the kind of mismatch between his professional life and, the way that he wanted to live. And one day he came and he told me one of his secrets. I could tell that he was going through a difficult time, and I could tell that he was up to something that he wasn't talking about. And then one day he came and he revealed it all. He told me that he'd gotten involved in a shady deal that was going to that involved some kind of a shipment of goods that would come into the country, and then once they come in, he was gonna be able to sell it all. Like he already had buyers lined up, and that it was all gonna be fine. Like he's gonna get all this money, and then all of a sudden life was gonna be fine. And I remember being shocked, like horrified that he was telling me this. But he was very keen to let me know that like this was the only way that he was going to break through. This was the only way that he was going to make it. This is the only way that he's going to be able to have all the things that he really wanted to have in life. This was the only way that he could see to making his way forward and progressing. And I remember what he said to me. He said to me, please don't worry, it's going to be okay. Like it's all looking like it's all working out. It's all going to be going through. And he said to me, I'm going to take good care of you. He said something really funny that I've never forgotten. He said, I'm not even going to let a fly land on you. He said, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to look after you. And he had all this big talk about how things were going to be good for us now that this money was going to be coming through. Now that this deal, this shady deal that he was involved in was going to come to fruition. Well, that deal didn't go through. Like got, it didn't go through. He got caught, he got arrested, and that was the end. And him and I didn't make it. He went to jail. Like it was all over for us and for, the relationship. But I've often thought back to that conversation when he told me about the deal. I've often thought about the fact that this guy was so brilliant, but the only way that he felt like he could make it in life was to go on the wrong side of the tracks. And I remember how animated he was. I remember how, um, oh my God, like I heard his heart towards me. Like he wanted to be a real man. He wanted to take care of me. He wanted to buy me things. He wanted to buy himself things. He wanted to experience life at another level. He had all these dreams and aspirations that just spilled out of him during that conversation. I mean, I saw him in a whole different light because before I just thought he didn't really care about all that stuff. But now, like now that he had this plan that he was working that he thought was going to come to pass, oh my God, he was like a new man. I saw the hope. I saw the aspiration. I saw the desire for a good, prosperous um, life of wealth and doing well and success. I saw his hunger for success, and it really blew me away. It blew me away. Even in the years that I thought about that story, since I've thought about that conversation with awe at how this man, how his desires were so high. And so what's it got to do with us? Well, there's this other side to the story because years and years later, that's probably around 2018 mark when I was writing my book, Influential Woman, I remember being stuck in the process of writing the book because what was happening was um, that the book was turning into something that I didn't plan for it to be. It was turning into a book about inequality, and I didn't feel, if I'm the truth be told, I didn't feel like I was qualified to talk about inequality. I mean, I just didn't feel like I'm not an inequalities expert. I just didn't feel like I felt the book was demanding more of me than I could provide. And so I went through a real wobble and my editor grabbed me by the shoulders one day. She said, Dion, why are you writing this book? What is at the root of your desire to have this book written? And I remembered that story. I remembered my boyfriend who was this brilliant man who had all this potential in the world and yet felt like the only way that he could get on in life, the only way that he could prosper, the only way that he'd be allowed to prosper as a black man would be to go on the wrong side of the fence. And I realized that he wasn't the only one, that I was surrounded by brilliant people who felt like they didn't have what it took to prosper. They didn't have what they didn't they weren't the, they didn't have the face that fit in high living in success, or they didn't feel like they had the same chance as everybody else. They weren't playing on the level playing field. I thought about all of this. Like when my editor asked me the question, I thought about my old boyfriend and many more like him, many other stories like his, where hope, hope was at a premium, hope for success and hope for the kind of life that they were dreaming of was at a premium because of the color of their skin or their gender or their accent or the country that they were born or just something around inequality. And when I spoke to my editor that day about it, I remember weeping because I didn't even know that I'd held that deep um, disillusionment, this that deep pain and hurt around the whole thing around inequality. Before writing my book, I didn't realize that this was a thing for me. But it was, as I spoke to my editor, it was just all coming clear that it just grieves me so much. I saw how much the 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 desire for people to be able to make the most dignified contribution, the desire for people to have the right to express themselves in high ways, to be part of society in their most dignified way, to make a contribution that was aligned with their potential, that people would be free to express themselves and um to to love their life, to love their life. That conversation with my editor really opened up my eyes to the fact that throughout my life, I had been gathering data and processing inequality and the unfairness of it. And I had been nurturing, like quite unconsciously, this desire to be part of changing it. And I can see how the work that I'm doing now with women in senior leadership, helping them to find their voice and to show up in their sovereignty and to lead with power and to speak up and to shake things up and to challenge systems that they're part of. It's all connected to that. It's all connected to a desire that's been building up in my life and through my lived experience. And yours will be too. I mean, that's the question that I really want to ask you is what is your leadership about? What's fueling your desire to go through the process of becoming this next level version of you as a leader? What's fueling your leadership? What is it that you want to see accomplished and happening through your leadership? Maybe you know, and maybe you've been rehearsing it for years like me, or maybe you don't yet know. But I know that in this process that we're engaged in of unlocking our new levels in leadership, of finding and expressing our most potent leader identity, our being our most sovereign in our field. This is going to take for us to know what our leadership is about. This is going to question us about why, why we're up to what we're up to in the world, why we want to become her, what we want to do with the expression of our most potent leadership. I would really love to know how this is landing for you. I'd really love to know what you think about my story and what it's unlocking for you, what it's speaking to you. Let me know.